In today's video, I would like to discuss with you why there's actually no such thing as mistakes or failures or even rejection. No such thing as mistakes, failures, and rejection in a way a person might think. And by that I meant very specifically that what the person considers to be a mistake or a failure or rejection, if they label whatever it is that was the result of what they were doing or not doing as a mistake, a failure, or rejection, they may think that they're not going to achieve or manifest their vision. Now, I can speak from experience on this, and not just my experience, but working with thousands of people over the years in the areas of entrepreneurship, relationships, public speaking, you name it. And also, my own personal experience of building 3 successful businesses. Public speaking. I used to teach these speed reading workshops back in the days. Used to do one on Saturdays and Sundays, 50, 100 people at a time. So what helped me flow? What helped me flow in these areas and actually experience excitement doing them was releasing the conditioning, and more specifically, the programming that suggests that mistakes, temporary failures, or rejection is a problem. It's not a problem. By that it is meant, there's a wonderful book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And in there, he says that the built-in success mechanism, which is oriented from a goal or a target or a vision, when conceived of as already in existence now, as in you already seen someone achieve it, so you know it's possible. Now, the person might think it might not be possible for them, but what he's saying is it's either conceived of as already in existence now in actual, so in actual as in it's been done before. Think of the 4-minute mile. When one person ran the 4-minute mile, then all of a sudden everyone starts running the mile in 4 minutes. 4-minute mile, the record was broken, and then all of a sudden people started doing it. This is true for a lot of things in life. You'll see it all over the place. So either in actual or potential form, or as I always say, all things exist now in imagination, potential form. So when you see yourself already in possession of that which you desire to have or that which you desire to be, I always say desire points to that or fulfillment. You are already that. So you can, if you'd like, if you feel better doing so, imagine yourself already in possession of that, or, as stated in the Bible, thou shalt decree a thing. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. Decree means decide. You are already that which you desire to be, a decision. The moment that you decide that you are already that which you desire to be, then you are that which you desire to be to the subconscious mind, which he calls the built-in success mechanism. Now, he says that the automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, it operates or is oriented to end results. Now, end results from the perspective of already being that, already having that. And what happens along the way is what we, ideally, are not concerned by, not worried by, which includes what the individual labels as mistakes or temporary failures or rejection. And why that is the case is because he did say in there, and I can honestly speak from personal experience because I've been applying what he said in Psychocybernetics for many years now, going back to 2004. As a matter of fact, Psychocybernetics, after I discovered this information in 2004 through Think and Grow Rich, was one of the books that came across shortly after my awareness, alongside Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, The Kybalion, all these books that say the same thing. He said that the servo mechanism of the subconscious mind achieves the goal by negative feedback or by going forward, making mistakes, and immediately correcting course. That's normal. See, an individual judging by appearances does not know that the mind, the subconscious mind, is actually getting purified. It's actually getting purified, or another way of saying it is the conditioning that is generating what the person calls rejection or mistake or failure is actually falling away, which is why he also said, you must learn to trust your creative mechanism to do its work and not jam it by becoming too concerned or too anxious as to whether it will work or not, or by attempting to force it by too much conscious effort. You must let it work rather than make it work. So there's the key right there. You must let it work rather than make it work. Now, by key, I mean something very specific. The master key. The master key. I don't know if you read The Master Key System by Charles Haanel. That book also points to the master key. So, when it says you must let it work rather than make it work, we can relate this over to Genesis 1:3, which contains the master key. It says, and God said, the light shall be, or another translation has it as, let there be light. I personally like the Peshitta Aramaic Bible translation that says, and God said, the light shall be, and the light was. So notice that there's no stress, no frustration. It's a simple decree. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. So again, it is, the light shall be, and the light was. Now another translation has it as, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So we see, let there be light. What is this light? The light is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is that consciousness beyond the limiting beliefs in the subconscious mind. That is pure consciousness, not the conditioned consciousness, which is the programming or the beliefs in mind, which includes the beliefs that generate the mistakes or failures or rejection labels that the individual places on appearances. Beyond that is the pure consciousness. So the light of awareness. Awareness, I am. God's name in the Bible, Exodus 3:14. I am that I am. That is pure awareness. So let there be light, pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, bliss, bliss being the real nature, or ananda, bliss, happiness, peace, joy, fulfillment. So you imagine yourself being that which you already desire to be. I always say desire means having. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. That's what it says. The light shall shine upon thy ways. That is Job 22:28. Decree, decide. Another translation has it as decide. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. We see no force there. And then it also says, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. So if the individual does not judge by appearances, then the light emerges. The light is just emerging, more and more so. And not only is the light emerging as the results, and we'll go through some examples, the conditions are also falling away by grace and grace alone. And that's why he also said, you must let it work rather than make it work. Let it work. So let's go through an example from personal experience. In 2010, while I was building my IT business, one of my friends, he was visiting from the UK, and he came by and he said, hey, I'm doing this personal development experiment or exercise. He likes to do these kinds of things, where I came to Canada with no money, and then I'm going to figure it all out, make new friends, move up in a well-paying career, or find some business to start or something like that. We were very inspired by that wonderful book, 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. So we used to do these kinds of things. Now, he came down and he met up with me. And I said, I'm getting a lot of clients from Craigslist for my IT business. And the way it works, the way I do it is I see these offices posting in the gigs section. They're asking for virus removal or fixing their networking issues or something like that. Just someone to come in there and just fix whatever kind of issue or problem, which is an opportunity. And I said, what happens is I go over there, I resolve this problem, which is an opportunity, and then I offer them my IT services. So ongoing IT business with them, they refer people to me, and these gigs that don't pay that much start the relationship. And he said, oh, that's really cool. I'll keep that into consideration. So a number of months had gone by, and then I met up with him, and he was staying in this beautiful condo downtown, and he got this wonderful consulting job. And then he said he's also teaching speed reading workshops on the side. And so he ended up getting this deal from Craigslist, as I had mentioned, the gig section. And I said, wow, that's really interesting. I'm actually a fan of speed reading. I learned it back in 2005, and it helped me tremendously. I was able to process a lot of information. I was able to learn how to retain information better. I actually thought I was a slow learner, and I actually didn't like reading. And then when I discovered the speed reading information, I remember one time I actually sat down and read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell from cover to cover. I read it from cover to cover with some breaks, applying the information that I had learned from speed reading. And I not only read it faster, it was flow-based, and I comprehended the information better. And I also retained that information so much so that every now and then I might refer to one of the examples on marketing that were given in the book, wonderful book called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And so he said, I don't want to teach these anymore. And I said, I'll teach them. If you don't want to teach them, I'll teach them. And so I was running an IT business at the time, but the idea came up in my mind that if I teach these speed reading workshops, then not only is there potential to acquire clients from these speed reading workshops, because they're business professionals going to these workshops, they're entrepreneurs, they're decision makers in organizations that are attending these workshops on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. But also, I can improve my public speaking skills. And if I can improve my public speaking skills, it'll open up more doors for me. And not only that, I'll also be able to convert more prospects and leads into clients, because I saw it as an area that I can improve on. Now, this idea popped up in my mind. It just popped up out of nowhere. That is an example of the light of awareness. The light of awareness illumines the mind with ideas. You may hear me say this sometimes, the still small voice or intuition. So I just do, and I used to listen to the Steve Jobs commencement speech over and over again. I just follow my heart and intuition. This one felt right. I moved forward with it. So I asked him, I said, would you be interested in asking Iris Reading, which is the company, if they would like to bring me on? I was a student of speed reading back in the days. It helped me tremendously. This is probably really good for them if I teach it, because I will teach it with a lot of joy. As I'm saying it to them, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to teach it with a lot of joy, but there was also a lot of fear, doubt, indecision emerging. I could feel it in my body, but it's one of those things where I feel the fear and do it anyways, because what I found with intuition is that sometimes it may suggest something that the moment I think of it, there's also some fear or uncertainty or doubt, and that's okay. Doubt is not a problem. Uncertainty is not a problem. Fear is not a problem. Just as we mentioned, making mistakes or temporary failure or rejection is not a problem. Those are just labels. To prove the point, one person, let's say, makes a mistake. They're snowboarding, they fall down, they get back up, and they learn from it. The other person shames and condemns themselves because of identification to programming. And that's why I'm making this video here, to dissolve this conditioning that there's a problem when it comes to making mistakes, temporary failures, or rejection. There is no problem. The built-in success mechanism is oriented to the vision. So my subconscious mind is impressed with the vision, and in some way, somehow, it works subconsciously with the infinite power of awareness, the light of pure awareness, which is the pure consciousness, which is not just consciousness, bliss, happiness, peace, joy, or ananda. It's also infinite intelligence. It's infinite intelligence, working with the infinite intelligence all around us here and within you. These ways are past finding out, it also says in the Bible. So I'm not concerned about these details. What he had said was, you'll have a conversation with him, Paul, the founder of Iris Reading, and get back to me. So long story short, I ended up getting a deal to teach the workshops, and I started teaching these workshops. So these workshops were held on Saturday and Sunday. Monday, I would start feeling anxiety. Tuesday, the anxiety would build up. Wednesday, the anxiety would build up even more. Thursday, the anxiety would build up even more, and Friday. And I was aware of the thoughts that were running through my mind. And the thoughts were fear or afraid of making mistakes, or of failure, fear of criticism, fear of rejection. What if they won't accept me? Now, I've been studying this information for a number of years prior to teaching these workshops, and I knew that this was conditioning that was stored in my subconscious mind. These are the limiting beliefs that suggest that if it happens this way, then you're a failure, Joe. You're never going to make it work, or whatever. If you do it this way or that way, people are going to laugh at you or something. You may have seen that movie, Carrie. They're all going to laugh at you. That scene where she was imagining her mom saying that. So stuff like that, although not that extreme. But these thoughts, this imaginal activity would appear in my mind. And what I would do is I would identify with this imaginal activity that suggests that there's a problem here, less and less and less. Now, when I teach these workshops, thus as a result of identifying less with this conditioning in the mind, not identifying with these thoughts, the emotions would release. And what happened over the course, through the repetition of teaching these workshops every weekend, was it was less and less anxiety and more excitement. It got to a point where there was no anxiety prior to public speaking, prior to teaching these workshops in 2018. I did 16 flights in 30 days teaching these workshops in US and Canada. And it was flow. It was one of my favorite life experiences, this period of 30 days flying around teaching these speed reading workshops. I was, over the course, and you and I know different, you could do the same thing as well, releasing the conditioning to let to let. It's one thing for me to say to you, let it, let it. But when we know what's going on, that in the subconscious mind, there's this whatever kind of programming, which is also orienting to manifest whatever kind of experiences. But as we're dissolving it along the way, the vision which has been impressed upon the subconscious mind manifests. Now, not only does that manifest, but lately I've been saying that is your real self manifesting. The radiant self that shines forth as personal magnetism, confidence, charisma, which I've been calling the fragrance of being, and your style, which is the best style, how you talk, how you carry yourself, your voice tonality, how you present. Where do you think I got the idea to teach from mind mapping? There was nobody on YouTube. When I started doing these mind mapping videos, there was no one that I saw that was using mind maps. But I was not looking around to see what other people are doing. And then if someone's not doing something that I genuinely desire to do, then think that, oh, if I don't do it like how they're doing it, then I make a mistake, or I was a failure because I can't teach like how they're teaching, or people will reject me because I don't teach the way other people teach. I didn't think those thoughts. I naturally started making videos talking about my experiences through books, etc., with mind maps, because this is my style of doing it. And interestingly, people started showing up. Right now, we got 400 and something thousand subscribers on this channel. And then I created a new channel earlier this year on entrepreneurship. If you're interested in that, I'll link in the description to it. Now it's like 3,500 subscribers with mind map videos. Who would have thought that making mind map videos, again, I did not concern myself with how things happen. Things happen. Now, not only do you see these things happen, okay, Joseph makes videos, he talks about his experiences, but all of these are related to my vision, or what I learned in Think and Grow Rich, he called it definite chief aim. Every definite chief aim that I have ever set since 2004 has manifested in form, because it is the same thing again, again, and again. There's no such thing as mistakes, temporary failures, or rejection. No such thing. It's just conditioning in mind, where a person labels whatever they're doing, not doing, experiences as life as mistakes, temporary failures, or rejection. And no shame, no condemnation. They could say it. They could say, okay, that was a mistake, or I failed in that attempt, or I got rejected. They can say that if they would like. Yet, what it is optimization data. It's optimization data. How do I know? Because in one of these experiences, let's call it mistake, temporary failure, or rejection, I know clearly what to do next time. All of a sudden, the idea emerges in mind as to how to optimize the optimization data. So I like to say optimization data because for many years I studied direct response marketing, consultative selling, and copywriting. So in these areas, we optimize based on the response we get. That's actually one of the saying. The meaning of the communication is the response you get. Now, you don't have to worry about optimizing really, because you learn as you fall, as you make these seeming mistakes, seeming failures, seeming rejections. You learn each time. And not only does the mind get deconditioned from all that heaviness surrounding it, the conditioning falls away and the real self shines forth as your style. So what you find is you don't copy people because you think that you're going to get the results that they're getting by copying them. If whatever it is that they're doing or not doing is not resonant and you copy it, I trust you see that sometimes it may work, sometimes it does not. Yet, when you trust that your way is the best way, your way emerges and it works. And people might look at that and say, oh, someone might say, okay, I'm going to start making mind mapping videos. Now, what I say to that is maybe. The answer is depends. Maybe that is your best style. Maybe that is your best style. I started to notice afterwards that there was more channels, not too many, but there was a few channels that came out that were doing mind map videos. And a number of them were my clients. That actually works for them. That is their best way. So we have that commonality. But it might not be the best way for everybody. The answer is it depends. We don't worry about those details because, as Maxwell Maltz had said, the built-in success mechanism of the subconscious mind, and more specifically, if you would really like to split hairs, God does it. It is the power of the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a metaphysical container that stores beliefs, memories, reference experience, etc. So when a person says, I have a personal identity, or this is my personality, or my self-image, or the identity in the Robert Dilts logical levels that I refer to often, what they're saying is that it's a combination of reference experience, memories, preferences, etc. The light of pure awareness is beyond that. The light of pure awareness, which is you, and also the pure awareness, which is you, is the master key. So we access that pure awareness in the stillness or the silence, or as I've been saying, do nothing to access that. There's a wonderful book called Power of Kabbalah by Yuda Berg. Power of Kabbalah by Yuda Berg has a foreword written by Madonna. I've been referencing it a lot lately. And in there it says to not react, to allow the light in. So we're saying the same thing here. The light of pure awareness, we let it emerge. We let it. So the way we let it emerge consistently is by having a different relationship with appearances that is more true. It's a true relationship with appearances, more accurately put, where the person suggests that those appearances are mistakes, failures, or rejection in a way that suggests they're not good enough, it won't happen, it's going to be stress-based, force-based. You see clearly that kind of thinking and the emotional reactivity is a result of conditioning. So how do we dissolve this? Through the repetition. I'm showing you my way. So you can put two and two together and discover your way. Through the repetition of teaching these workshops, again, again, and again, not running away from failure, not running away from making mistakes, not running away from rejection, not running away, allowing that light of awareness to shine forth, the real self to shine forth, knowing that the conditions are being blown away by grace and grace alone. The mind is purified, and the results happen. Repetition, again, 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 and again. Not vain repetition, as stated in the Bible, not vain repetition, but essentially knowing that what is happening here is the conditions are falling away. And this is the story that plays out. So if you look at anyone that has produced whatever kind of result, whatever it may be, built successful businesses, their relationships, ideal relationships have manifested, we'll see if we connect the dots looking backwards that there was a bridge of incidents. As Neville Goddard calls it, the bridge of incidents. Or there was a story, or there was a sequence of events that played out. Or as Steve Jobs said, you connect the dots looking backwards. And each one of those events, although the individual might not realize it in the moment as they're unfolding or as they're happening, play a role. So you have a choice. You can choose to consider these kinds of appearances as stress and frustration by identifying with this programming, which is ego-based programming, or you can dissolve the programming by releasing the emotions in the moment. Practically speaking, in Power of Kabbalah, they say, do not react, to allow the light. So in the moment, rather than conditional response, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, you may take a deep breath and then move forward with the initiative. So I don't take a deep breath and not do the thing that I genuinely desire to do. I take a deep breath and do the thing that I genuinely desire to do. I desire to teach these workshops. So I taught the workshops. Even though there were these thoughts appearing in mind of suggesting, which was from conditioning, that if this happens, then you're making a mistake and you're not doing it like Paul, the founder of Iris Reading. I remember when I watched the video of him teaching the workshops, that video is still up on the channel, Iris Reading channel, in DePaul University. I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to present like him? See, again, that was judging by appearances, because I'm saying if I don't present like Paul does, then I can't deliver the workshop effectively, which is illusory. We see clearly that that's illusory. God does everything. We let it happen. The individual interferes through interference patterns generated by conditioning. You dissolve the interference patterns by not reacting, and the light of awareness shines through as all these things. As it was the beginning, now, and ever shall be. This is how it works. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. Insights, perspectives, things change, people appear, all play a harmonious role. So this is interesting because not only was it related to the vision of being more effective of a public speaker, which then later on I started the channel and so forth, all kinds of interesting things emerged as a result of not identifying with this kind of conditioning that suggests that there's a problem with making mistakes, temporary failures, rejection. No such thing. Not only that, I feel freer now. I can literally walk around in society, out and about, confidently. Back in the days, I felt like I was walking on eggshells. If I see someone I would like to start a conversation with, I will walk over and start a conversation with them without the stress, without the frustration. People are like, how do you do that thing? Because there's no conditioning in mind that suggests that there's a problem, no matter what emerges. And that is not just true for when you're out and about. That's also true for reaching out to people online. So let's say a person has a business and an idea emerges to do 5 prospecting sessions a day. They just do the 5 prospecting sessions a day. They have an idea to start a marketing campaign. They just start the marketing campaign. As mentioned earlier, direct response marketing, the meaning of the communication is the response you get. So what happens is it plays out as an optimization. Some optimize faster, some optimize longer. I don't worry about time. That's another thing. I don't worry about time. An individual worried about time looks around, perhaps, and says, oh, it happened faster for this other person. It's not happening as fast for me. Again, they're judging by appearances, which is generating suffering. Now, as mentioned, the beliefs, and if those beliefs are limiting, they fall away. They fall away. Certainly, I don't think anyone wants to walk around being afraid of rejection, being afraid of failure, being afraid of temporary failure, mistakes, etc. They think this way because conditioning has been formed in mind that suggests there's a problem here. There is no problem. If you think that there's a problem, you just keep persisting in this idea that there's a problem. I recommend not dissolve that conditioning by not reacting. That's it. Again, again, and again. All I did was I teach these workshops again, again, and again, and identify less and less and less and less. And the real self shines forth as my style, which is the best style. And the same will be for you. Not necessarily the way I do it, but your style, the best style. So optimization data is presented. You get responses when you put out a marketing campaign. You optimize accordingly. I have a number of clients that run successful ad agencies. I have a number of clients that run successful social media agencies. And with all their clients, including for themselves, usually they start these agencies after producing results for themselves, and then people ask them, how did you do it? Just like how they did it with themselves, and just like how they do it with their clients, that's the same thing we're talking about here. They don't see whatever kind of responses from the market, whether it be lack of response, but nobody's buying, but there's a lot of engagement or whatever, as a problem. It's all optimization data. And by seeing things as they are, this is a key distinction. Seeing things as they are, not through a lens of conditioning. Seeing things as they are, naturally what emerges, the light of awareness. You get an idea, or something may change on its own. Some way, somehow, God does it. God does everything by grace and grace alone. If the individual is to play their part, as I always say, soul doership is an illusion. If the individual is to play their part, they will know what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, etc. In the moment, it'll emerge. Still small voice, intuition. And the rest is taken care of. So, just as whatever is playing out is theater, and sometimes that theater that plays out is what you call patterns, particular kind of pattern, let's for example, in relationships. The people that they desire to commit to are people that don't desire to commit to them. Again and again and again and again, that's a pattern. Rather than shaming and condemning themselves, or shaming and condemning the other person, or shaming and condemning in general, they see it's a pattern, which is a belief playing out in theater from the subconscious mind. They no longer react to it. They let it be. They dissolve the conditioning. Some of the ways to dissolve the conditioning, auto-suggestion, as I had learned from Think and Grow Rich. And what happens is that pattern no longer plays out again. What is playing out is the real self shining forth, which is beyond the conditioning, the light of pure awareness, which is you. You are that pure awareness, and your real nature is bliss, happiness, peace, joy. How do you know? Well, have you not noticed that as you apply what he's talking about, which is you let it happen, let there be light, that the experience can be described as something you can categorize as Ananda, or love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment? That is your real nature. So I always say, you only desire to know who you are and be as you are and live your dream life. So does every individual. And what's cool is that it all plays out in perfect harmony as well. So everyone benefits greatly. The students benefit greatly. I benefit greatly. I'm just being as I am. That's it. I am just being as I am. That is all. So being as I am, really, if I was really being as I am means I don't identify with these kinds of conditions. They do not represent reality. If there was seeming, let's call it seeming mistake, seeming temporary failure, or seeming rejection, you have a conversation with the other individual about this, because ultimately there is no other. So as ultimately there is no other, you relate harmoniously. How can you say, oh, ultimately there is no other, and then be in conflict with the person in front of you? It doesn't make any sense. There is no such thing as separation, but meanwhile they identify with particular kinds of conditioning in particular scenarios all of a sudden. That's okay. No shame, no condemnation. We can dissolve that conditioning. That's the moment to not react, or as I say, do nothing, to allow the light of awareness to emerge. Now, to be very specific, do nothing does not mean don't have a conversation with them if that's the right thing to do. Don't walk over and start a conversation with them. Don't call them back if that's the right thing to do. It doesn't mean force yourself to physically do nothing if it is the right thing to do. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Follow your heart and intuition, as Steve Jobs had said. That has been my guide, the still small voice. All of it appears to play a perfect role in flow. Everything appears to flow here. I am still, you are still, yet body appears to flow in perfect harmony. that stillness is you. Another way of saying it is, you don't try to be still, you are still beyond all these things. You don't force yourself to be still, you are still beyond all these things. Body appears to flow, as all of this is a play of God. So, what happens then is the mind is deconditioned, the subconscious mind is deconditioned, and more so, it is experienced as all things in perfect harmony. So, the visions manifest in a flow-based way rather than a stress and force-based way. The stress and force-based way is the result of conditioning. The flow-based way is the natural way. The way of life is flow, the Tao, the natural way. That's why I always say these visions are prophecies. They're prophecies because every single one of these definite chief aims that I've set has manifested. And why? I just remain on course. I just remain on course. That's it. What does that mean, remain on course? It means what Napoleon Hill calls not drifting. Well, you can drift if you would like. Here's the thing I found. It's not like I was never not drifting. I drift less and less, yes. I flow. Flow is distinguished from drifting. Drifting is if a person gets distracted by appearances based on conditioning. In other words, they identify with a thought, and the thought plays out as a theater of distraction with another person or some information, etc. It is not the information, it's not the person, it's not the environment, it's the identification to the thought which corresponds to that. In the Kabbalion, it's called correspondence. It's the identification to the thought in relation to the appearances that generates the illusion of being distracted. You are not distracted. I am that prior to all these things, not distracted. And the individual in mind does not generate the interference patterns, thus not being distracted. And everything flows. Everything flows. Now, the result, the way I'm speaking to you right now, is the result of applying this over the years consistently. Consistency, consistency, consistency. A person may say, how long is it going to take? What about this? What about that? Consistency, consistency, consistency. So again, to recap, God does everything. The programming in the subconscious mind, if that programming does not represent you, you don't identify with it. Don't identify with the thoughts, the emotions regulate. The thoughts appear to disappear, like we discuss in the various videos through the 7-Day Mental Diet by Emmett Fox. And the behaviors flow. Everything appears to flow. This is how you remain in flow. I know I always say, make flow a priority. Well, this is another way to make flow a priority. Do not react. Allow the light of awareness to shine as all these wonderful things. And as you continue to live this way, which is the natural way of life, if I say, okay, live this way, it could sound like a new way to live. It is a new way if we look at it from the Bible perspective of what is called the new man, which is the real man. And this is not the old man. The old man in the Bible is identified with conditioning, which is not real. The person identified with conditioning in mind is not real, just as the conditioning is not real. The real self shines forth as all these things. So, you have a vision. You commit to a vision. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. How does the light shine upon thy ways? As what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, etc. And also things happening on their own. When it is time for you to make a move, you will know. I can honestly say it. And then moves, you can call them non-linear. Might not make any sense. Why would you teach speed reading? See, without context, if I didn't give all this context over the years, the question would be, why would you teach speed reading while you were building an IT business? That sounds like drifting. It is not drifting. In that context, that very specific context, it is not drifting. How do I know? Because not only did it work out, not only did I build my IT business to success, I also, having dissolved the conditioning surrounding public speaking, communication, also live freely in my personal life, in my business life, in relationships with everyone here, family, etc. And we can say, as a result, more doors opened up, such as building this YouTube channel, consulting, other kinds of public speaking events that I've done. So if you have any questions about this, please leave a comment in the description and we can explore in an upcoming video. I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, I am that beyond all these things. And knowing that I am that beyond all these things happen by grace and grace alone. Conditions fall away on their own. Everything appears to be blown away by grace and grace alone, as I remain as I am, witnessing all these things appearing in a loving, happiness, peaceful, blissful, flow-based way to manifest my vision, representing the transmutation of the path of most resistance into the path of least resistance by God's grace alone. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.